Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, man. Happy Friday. It is a holiday weekend, if you will. I usually do in the blender Tuesdays and Thursdays, but today I have a very special guest. And special guests, calls for special days, man. This guy is one of the pioneers in Dolphins content creation, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, podcasting, and he's helped thousands of people get Dolphins news from around the people that are not from Miami. They say, what's that? Necessity is the great mother of all inventions or whatever. This guy, like I said, he's a pioneer, and I am very fortunate to be here talking to him about how he became a Dolphin fan from all the way from New York. So when we come back, we got the great Mike Oliva from Dolphins Talk. When we come back.
I know you heard me on the radio, flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio, flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
This next gentleman, like I said before, helped a lot of people get Dolphin content that weren't able to get it. I'm here to eat a little bit of crow because when I first started listening to him, I thought he was just this negative guy and know-it-all. But at the end of the day, everything he said came to fruition. And I'm like, you know what? You have no choice but to respect this next guest, the one, the only, Mike Oliva. What's going on, brother?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me. Thanks for being one of the converts who once didn't like me, I guess, and now is a fan.
Well,
I do.
yeah, I understand.
You know what? And not a lot of people would admit that, so I give you a lot of credit for saying that.
Well, I had to, because you know what, you gotta, you gotta admit when you're wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I don't even view it as like negative. I hate like how people get sort of pigeonholed into like positive or negative. You're the positive or negative. No, today's what, March 29th. I have this information today. This is my opinion today. If I have new information on March 30th, my opinion may change based on new information. So what might have been a negative take, I'm not going to be held to the rest of my life, because when new information comes, that might be positive, or that my opinion is going to change. It's like people feel, that's what I despise about social media is you get lumped into a category and it's like you're in there forever and you can never change. It's like, no, if I walk outside in the morning and it's raining, I'm going to say it's raining. Why? Because it's raining and that's the reality. If I walk outside and it's sunny, I'm going to say it's sunny. Just because I walk outside on Tuesday and it's raining doesn't mean I have to walk outside Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and say it's raining when it's not. Opinions this is football. News is fluid. Opinions are fluid. Things change. And if people aren't able, and by people, I mean like reporters or content creators or whoever, aren't able to evolve their thoughts and opinions based off of new information, then they're probably bad at their job, because new information changes everything all the time. And just because you have one opinion on Monday doesn't mean you have the same opinion on Tuesday when new information's out there that changes an entire situation, whatever the situation is. And this isn't even about sports or football. It should be that way in all aspects of life. And like, nobody should be pigeonholed to the one opinion they say one time. So that's kind of where I come from on how I break down the Miami Dolphins. It's like, I think this right now, as I'm saying it, tomorrow might be different.
By the way, I'm going to have a nice little cigar.
Go
By
for
the way,
it.
It's Oliva. It's Oliva cigar.
I've heard, I don't smoke cigars, but I've had people show me them and want to buy me them. It's like, I don't smoke, but yes, the Oliva last name is in a few different things, and that is one of them.
Actually, they're really good cigars.
That's what everyone says too. They goes, no man, these are really good. I go, it's great. I just don't smoke cigars. But great that they're great. I wish I was getting like a dime for every one sold, but I'm not.
But no, one of the things I told, I had TD Finstock on here. I'm a big fan of his as well. And the one thing I told him, we go way back. I remember when he used to do call-in shows. This is before StreamYards was available. He
Yeah.
gave out a burner phone number. And one of the things I told him was that content creators are like weathermen. Okay. You see, like if you look at a hurricane, right? If you say it's coming to Miami, it doesn't necessarily it's going to be coming to Miami, but the trajectory, the wind pressure, it has it coming to Miami. And not to mention, if you look at 3 different weather channels, that everybody's got that hurricane going to a different location. So,
Yep.
And like I said, so what you're doing is trying to see where the storm is going. It may not land there, but from what you're seeing, this is the trajectory you think it's going to go in.
Yeah, my best educated projection or opinion or guess for sure. And here's the thing: it's not even content creators. That's what everyone is doing.
Yeah.
From anyone on ESPN, anyone from the NFL Network, anyone who gives an opinion, people forget it's an opinion, not a fact. And it's their best educated guess, prediction, opinion, whatever, based on their background, their experiences, their facts. I'm getting older now, so I have been doing this for a while, kind of like what you said. And after years and years of experience, you start to see trends more than maybe some other people a little bit younger who might not see or might not have experienced as many years of this as I have. And you can sort of decipher, okay, this I can sort of see where this is headed. It's going here. Doesn't mean I'm 100% right. Nobody's 100% right. Anyone who claims to be 100% right is just lying to your face. They're not. But track records, like you said, you listen to me for a period of time, and over that period of time, you're like, dang, everything this guy said turned out to be true. And that's where I like to think my track record has evolved to. It's not always right, because again, nobody is.
Yeah.
But more hits than misses. I think anyone who's listened to me over an extended period of time, it's more hits than misses. And here's the thing too. I am very fair and honest when I talk about the Dolphins. When it comes to like the hot topic, like Tua, oh my God, you're either a lover or you believe it. It's like, I don't know why he's treated any different than any other player. If he plays good, shocking, sit back, I say he played good. If he played poorly, sit down for this, I say he played poorly. I don't know why, once again, you have to be put in one of these 2 camps, and that you can never leave the 2 camps. You either must love him or must hate him at all times. No matter
to a hater or to a near.
You are labeled. It's like, no, when he plays good, like any other player, I say he had a good game today. If he had a great game, he had a great game today. If he played bad, he played bad today. It's like, I don't know why this is a difficult concept for people on the internet to understand, but it is the internet. And I will say, this is prime example of the internet. Every morning, I go on Twitter, X, whatever the heck it's called these days. Yeah. And I say, everyone, whatever day of the week, have a fantastic Friday. Have a terrific Thursday. Have a great Monday. A nice, welcoming greeting. How anyone could have an issue with that. People, not often, but, well, often I would say, there's at least 1 or 2 people who say, F off, screw you. It's like, it's the internet. People are just jerks. And how I've tailored my show over the years is, don't play to the internet crowd. Yeah. Yes, the internet to some extent is your audience, but it's not your entire audience, number one. Some people find shows, who aren't, let me rephrase this. Social media isn't your audience. Yes, to some extent it is. Obviously, there's a portion of it. But many people, especially older gentlemen and stuff like that, who maybe aren't too savvy on social media, but they're on the internet, they'll stumble onto a show. Or people have heard me doing radio spots on Sirius NFL radio or stuff, and they will find your show, and that's your audience. The people who are never going to reach out to you, never send you a tweet or a message or a comment. That's the vast majority of any audience of those people, the silent majority. So I try not to get caught up in the toxic social media world, because it really is toxic at the end of the day. And I try to play to a larger crowd and not be pigeonholed in, John 43782 with 10 followers told me, who gives a crap about him? It's like, what am I going to respond to the one guy when I got thousands who don't even know who that guy is? So yeah, it's just about playing to a wide base and being honest with your opinions. And here's the thing. We're all fans of this team. If we weren't, we wouldn't do what we do. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to give your team tough love sometimes. Look, that's not wrong. What actually is wrong is not giving your team tough love. And when they're making mistake after mistake after mistake, and they go 24 years without winning a playoff game, sitting by in silence and not complaining or not saying, I have a problem with this, actually sends a message to the team. We don't have to do better. They seem to enjoy this product, even though we never win. Why do I have to do anything more than roll out the same crappy product I've rolled out for 24 years? Because the fan base doesn't seem to have a problem with it. So speaking up as a fan or using any type of outlet, not to be over the top or grandiose or be, a jerk about it, but, when you see mistakes made at those times, to voice them or say, I think this is a mistake, I think that makes someone a good fan instead of someone who just sits by quietly going, I'm just going to accept any old thing that happens as you go on year 24 without a playoff win.
Yeah.
So kind of how I view it.
One of the things that I kind of agree with you, and I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by fair and honest, where, like, for instance, with Mike McDaniel, right? You're very fair on him. And the one thing that I agree with you is the fact that 2 years in a row, he says, I should have ran the ball, and he abandoned the run.
Doesn't do it.
What makes you think that in year 3 he's going to
exactly
do different?
Yeah, it's like Mike McDaniel is a great play designer. I don't know if he's a great play caller, and I don't know if he's a great head coach. I know some fans get all worked up. Well, he's the best we had since Shula. Yeah, and so what? He's the best we had since Shula. What does that mean? He has a job for life? We can't question anything? Just because we hired 10 head coaches in between that stunk, that means Mike McDaniel, since he's the best we've had since Shula, is above criticism? Like, I don't understand what that means. It's the same thing with Tua. He's the best we had since Marino. Yeah, and that and a buck will get you a cup of coffee. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, that has no value. There's no meaning behind that. McDaniel can design plays. Awesome.
And by the
situational play calling.
Real quick. Have you seen the last quarter? Have you seen the last 20 quarterbacks we had? That's not a very high bar to go off of.
Exactly. It's almost quarterback and head coach. We've been so bad since Shula and Marino. Some people would say Jimmy and Marino. Fine, whatever. It's only like 3 years of Jimmy. Who cares? Or like 4 years, whatever it was. It's been so bad in between. It's such a low bar. It's pretty much like it doesn't mean anything. But when it comes to McDaniel, when it comes to designing plays, again, they're awesome. It's number one offense in the league. How can you complain? Here's how. It's not really complaining. You can have the number one offense in the league. We were 8-3 in 2022, 9-3 in 2023. Didn't win the division either year. Late season collapsed, and his offense pooped the bed late in the year in both years, and you didn't win a playoff game in between. So great, you have the number one offense. Put up a banner, throw a parade. I don't know what that means when there's no actual result from having the number one offense at the end of the day. I'll take a number 5 offense if it means we win the AFC East. I'll take a number 12 offense if it means we win the Super Bowl. So it's like and it's not that the play calling is bad all the time. He can run it up when he's playing the Panthers, the Patriots, the Jets, and like all the garbage team. But when it gets to crunch time, like everyone points the game against the Cowboys late in the year, we scored 1 offensive touchdown in that game.
Yeah.
1. We were bailed out by the field goal kicker. So even the big win late in the year, we scored 1 offensive touchdown. People look at 2022 when we were 8-3, had a collapse. Oh, we didn't have Tua. That collapse, we had Tua for 4 games that we lost in a row. Tua. It wasn't until after that they lost with Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson. But the first 4 games of that collapse, he had Tua as his quarterback, lost them all. And the offense, when he says, I'm going to run the ball more, he just doesn't. Hard Knocks was a blessing. After the loss to the Titans, he shows that fade pass in the end zone. He goes, oh, this is low percentage. Guys, this one's on me. It's on me. I'm never calling this one again. He called it 2 of the next 3 weeks. So I'm at the point with Mike McDaniel where he's clearly a bright guy, went to an Ivy League school. He's not bad.
No.
But this,
he's no Adam Gase, I could tell you that.
Yeah, this unwavering love and support he gets, can't question him. It kind of baffles me because until he actually wins something of consequence, and he's had the most talented Miami Dolphins roster since the late 90s. Some people will say the year with Zach and JT and Ricky. Okay, you can make that argument. I'm not going to argue with you on that. Yeah. But pretty much the most talented Dolphins roster in the past 20 to 25 years. Yeah. Okay, that's a long time. I don't know, man. It's like he's not bad, but I think there's a lot of growth needed with him. He never wins a challenge. Never. 3 and 13. I think he's out of 13 challenges, he's won 3.
Yeah.
And he refuses to fire a special teams coach who has failed at his job and gotten worse actually year after year. So there's a lot to question with him as a head coach. Again, play designer, A+. But that's one small aspect of being an NFL head coach. That's one aspect. He's got a lot of room to grow in a lot of other areas. Again, that doesn't make me a hater. I'm not saying he's got to get fired. I'm saying he's got all this talent. At some point, you got to expect a result from it. You got to expect a result, and there's no results yet. And people say, well, it's only year 3. He's a young head coach. That's great. He's a young head coach. It's only year 3. He took over a team that's ready to win now. There's no time to learn on the job with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of my points is if he had the Brian Flores, the team that he had when Brian Flores took over, then yes, he has a learning curve. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, grow together. Absolutely.
But at any rate, one of my theories on real quick before we get to the $1 million question is I think one of the reasons why Danny Crossman and my theory is getting stronger because of the defensive coordinator we go last year is because Fangio, because he gets along. See, Fangio wanted the defense his way versus I could see Crossman is like, well, I want this. Okay, sure. However you want it.
Yeah.
However, he's kind of like get along, and he's like a yes man. So he does everything that Mike McDaniel tells him to do versus Fangio was challenging him at every step. So he's like, you know what? This guy, he does it. He goes my way. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why get rid of him?
Yeah. I think with Vic too, here's the deal. And I know it's just one of those things where Vic's gone. So if you're a fan, some fans just pile on. Vic stinks. Vic sucks. Vic's horrible. It's like, no. With all the injuries we had last year on defense, Jalen Ramsey missed the first, 7-8 games. Then Holland goes down. He misses like a large part of the second half. Obviously, Jalen Phillips late November. Baker, Van Ginkel at the end. Chubb, obviously, what happened at the end of the year with him. All the injuries. That was a top 10 defense. Do not tell me that man cannot coach. He navigated every one of those injuries. He had Eli Apple, and he still had a top 10 defense. Do not tell me that man can't coach. If the players didn't like him, too stinking bad. It's not your job to like your boss. It's your job to perform for your boss. And we will see if the Dolphins made the right call. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Here's what I know. That man was unemployed for about 3 seconds. The Philadelphia Eagles were more than happy. You don't think Philadelphia Eagle players want to like their man? In Philadelphia, we don't care if the players like him. He's a good coach. Bring him in. So we will see if the Eagles, go flying this year and they have a great year and they go far in the playoffs. Yeah, they have a great defense. Vic Fangio is probably going to be a big part of that. And if the Dolphins struggle, well, maybe they made a mistake by letting Vic Fangio go.
We'll see how that goes.
Or it could be vice versa. If the Philadelphia Eagles stink and Miami makes a run, give Mike McDaniel all the credit in the world. He made the right call. I'm just saying, I just would not have been so quick to run out a coach who had a top 10 defense with all those injuries. And if the players didn't like him, I tell the players, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, not how many people like Belichick? How many people like, you know what I'm saying? So Mike Schottenheimer. And they at the end of the day, they got results.
That's all that matters in this league. Because you could be the nicest guy in the world. You can tell the funny one-liners at press conferences. You could be everyone's best friend. If you don't win, eventually you're gone. And I think Mike McDaniel, is inching into that category where he's pretty and let's be honest, the bar set pretty damn low. Win a playoff game. End the 24-year. Nobody's asking him to win a Super Bowl. Nobody's even asking him to win the AFC East. Just win a playoff game so we don't have to be the longest drought in NFL history without a playoff win. If he just wins a playoff game this year, he'll probably have a job for another 3 to 5 years. If the bar set pretty low with all the talent he's got, it's a pretty low bar.
So the $1 million question now. How did you, growing up in New York, became a Miami Dolphins fan?
Well, I was born in the late 70s, early 80s. Dan Marino was the man. He still is the man, but back then he was really the man. What Pat Mahomes is now, Dan Marino was then, for people who might not be old enough or weren't around who are watching. So early 80s or so, right peak childhood for me. You just watch him once or twice and you become hooked as a fan. And ever since then, it just grew. We didn't have the technology back then either, obviously, of like the Sunday ticket and like the internet and all that stuff. So getting Miami Dolphins games was actually not as hard because they were so good. He was such a superstar. They were like a national game most weeks, or at least a lot of weeks. So I got to see them a lot as a child, whether Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, or just a regular Sunday game, because Dan Marino was the it player on the it team in the early 80s. It's even the late 80s to a certain point. So just became hooked on him as a fan, and just have been a fan my entire life. And then from there, as I always say, as men, you will leave your job. You will leave your wife. You will leave your girlfriend. You might even leave your mistress. You will never leave your favorite sports team.
Yeah, true. Yeah, man. I've been a Dolphin fan. I've been a Heat fan. Oh, well, every team except Miami, the Canes. I'm a Gator fan, but other than that, yeah, I'm yeah, and what's funny is I seen the Marlins win 2 championships. I seen the Heat win 3. I seen the Gators win 3 to win basketball. But the one team that I love the most, I have yet to see win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, all the other teams I root for really, because here's the deal with the NFL too. It's also, even before the NFL knew it was a national sport. Like, you had fans like me who didn't live in Miami but fans of the Dolphins. You have a lot of fans of like Indianapolis Colts who never stepped foot in the state of Indiana. Like, you have, like, it's a national team.
Oh, trust me.
Or it's a national sport. Other sports are more regional. Like, I root for the Yankees. I've seen them win championships. Not a big NBA fan. Don't really care. Hockey, I root for the Rangers. I saw them win a Stanley Cup in '94. In college, I root for Syracuse. Obviously, saw them win a national championship with Carmelo Anthony. So definitely a fan. But this is the one team. I've seen him get to a Super Bowl. I saw him play against the Redskins. I was really little. Then I saw him play against San Francisco and Montana that year. Once again, I was a child then. I didn't appreciate it like I would appreciate it now, just to even make the game, let alone win it. So this is the one team in the one sport that I care about the most, because I've seen probably the least success, or at least of late. Again, when I was younger, the Dolphins were in the 80s up until like 88, 89. There's a little bit of a dip. Then it came back in the 90s. And they're good pretty much all the 90s, even though they don't, make a Super Bowl or anything, but they were good and they were in the mix. And they were like in the 90s, you knew Miami was going to the playoffs every year. Now we like hope and plead we make the playoffs. Back then, you could walk into September week 1 like, we're going to the playoffs. Outside of the year, Marino really just got hurt and couldn't play. And then early 2000s, we were like, okay. Then it was a nosedive. Here's the thing. Wannstedt gets a lot of blame. I would sign up for those Wannstedt years right now, man, because Wannstedt had us on the brink almost, winning the AFC East one year, in the playoffs. I mean, not that I'm not saying Dave Wannstedt's a great head coach. I'm not saying that. I'm saying at least you were in the mix consistently. And once he left, it's been a house of horrors.
Oh yeah, especially with who's that? Who's the coach from the offensive coordinator from San Diego, the one in 15 season? Cam Cameron, yeah.
Joe Philbin.
So let me ask you, have you been to any Dolphin? You've been to a few Dolphin games, correct?
I've been to more than a few, yeah.
Can you remember your first Dolphin game in person?
Yeah, funny enough, I do. You remember the game where Marino blew out his Achilles tendon?
Cleveland
I was
Browns?
there. That was my first game. I have some people in my family who are fans of the Browns, and myself and my grandfather liked Miami. And there was a bus trip out of Syracuse that year to Cleveland for that game. So I was like 13-ish or so, roughly around there. My brother was a couple years younger. So we're like, hey, man, we got to go. So it was a bus trip where you leave on like a Saturday. You have all Saturday there. Then on Sunday's the game. Then you come home after the game. So that was the first game. We won the game. We actually won that game. But yeah, I mean, I was there for that moment.
Just like when we won the I think that was the year we beat Dallas, but after that we didn't win any more games.
Yep. Thanksgiving Day. Yep, lost them all.
That was a game.
That was a rough year.
What was the game? Do you remember the game that made you say, "Damn, I want to be a Dolphin fan"?
Yeah, I mean, it was that 84 season for sure. With Marino. I mean, I was so little then. But I remember the playoff game that year. The two playoff games I remember the most are the wild card game versus Cleveland, where there's a big comeback and they won because they were down in the first half big. And then the AFC Championship game versus Pittsburgh, where they just blew Pittsburgh out like 45-7 or something, some crazy score. Those two games really cemented it. But it was that 84 season. Once again, I was about 6 or 7. Marino's all over TVs, all over. And then it was all about the magazine. And like just if you went to a supermarket, there's all the magazines, and he was on the cover like all the sports magazines pretty much each week. So that's when I really that year, and probably late in the year on that run to the Super Bowl was probably when I was like truly hooked.
So how did you how were you able to consume your Dolphins content back in those days?
Yeah, it was tough back then. But I mean, once again, you're going to like early 80s, like ESPN's only a few years old. But ESPN back then was not like ESPN now. I call that the good old days ESPN, where that was like the NPR of sports. It was just sports, just the facts, and they covered like stuff hardcore. So ESPN, the magazines, like I said back then, you go to a supermarket each week or a drugstore, there was like Sports Illustrated, NFL Died. I mean, some of those are still around, but most of them aren't. And there was just so many magazines that covered sports back then. Reading it that way. Later on, when you get to the 90s, Dolphins Digest was, once I discovered that, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to send me a magazine each week dedicated about the Miami Dolphins. And for people of a certain age who remember Dolphins Digest, it was the best. It was a paper magazine that was 2 or 3 writers in South Florida. I think they actually work for the team, but they produced this magazine, and it was like a newspaper once a week, and they would send it straight to your house. And if you paid $1 more, one whole dollar, they would send it priority shipping, so you would get it prior to that week's game instead of receiving it the day after the game. So, but that was the best. It was tougher back then. Sports talk radio was huge. Nowadays, it's podcasting and shows like this. Sports talk radio back then was huge. The national shows at night. Local shows up here were more Giants, Jets, and Bills, but they'd still talk about Miami because they were a big player. But consuming content, the kids these days don't know how good they have it. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. And that brings me to my next question, because again, the territory that you're about to dive into was very new, very raw. Nobody, like nowadays, you can go to YouTube. You have
There's a million people
StreamYard.
doing it. Yeah.
It's so much easier. That's why I think I'm doing it. But what made you specifically say, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I want to get my opinion out there and put your face out there for the world to see. And by the way, you do great content. So
thank you. I appreciate that. So essentially, back when the internet like sort of first became something everyone had in their house, or even like on the cusp of that, like late 90s, there were the old AOL message boards where you could go sign on to AOL. Not on, like this fast speed internet we got now is the old your telephone line is going to be tied up as long as you're on the internet. And there was the AOL message boards where you can go on those message boards, kind of what Twitter is today, and talk to other fans and share your thoughts on any topic. And there's of course one about the Miami Dolphins. So I started writing there, and on there I saw there was this website that this guy had where he would just put up random thoughts on the Dolphins. It was, which I didn't know the term at the time. It was a blog essentially. Mm-hmm. And I sent him an email saying, great site, great work. I think it's great. Just want to sort of let you know that. And he reached back out. He was like, if you ever want to write something, let me know and I'll put up on the site. So I partnered up with him, and on this blog, it became like a 50-50 partnership where we each just put up stuff, our thoughts on whatever was happening, any news, the games, this, that, or the other. And then in time, I was like, maybe we should run this kind of like a newspaper, put up like news, official stories, commentary. So we started doing that, and it grew. The big break, though, with that site came when Ricky came to Miami. Was it 03 or 02? 02.
Yeah,
02. Whatever. His mom. So there was the national radio host at the time, Tony Bruno. I think it was Fox Sports Radio or one of those radio shows. is he's doing a show in the afternoon. You say Ricky Williams overrated, whatever he was saying. He was like bad mouthing Ricky a little bit. Ricky Williams' mother calls into the show and starts yelling at the host. And this made like national news. Like Ricky Williams' mother just called into this big time radio host, started yelling at him. So I thought, and I actually heard that too. Like when it aired, I'm like, this is the greatest. I have to talk to this lady. So I tracked down her email address, which was not easy at the time. Because not, once again, early days of the internet, stuff wasn't just out there. So I tracked it down, sent her an email, introduced myself, told her who I am. I go, would you like, because this was like right before the season, would you like to write for this season on our website each week, because she knew her sports from what she was saying on that radio show. Like she wasn't just some mom of a player. Like she knew sports. She was giving like deep analysis. I go, would you like to like pick 3 games a week and then pick the Miami Dolphins game? And in return, if you do that, because she had a charity set up for Ricky, every touchdown Ricky scores this season, I'll give $20 to the charity. At the end of the year, if he scores 10 touchdowns, 10 times 20, add up. Or
got you.
Or whatever. She goes, absolutely, sure. So that I announced that. Then Alex Marvez at the Sun Sentinel sees that. He reaches out to me. He interviews me in the Sun Sentinel, and that blows everything up. It blows up my name, blows up the little website name, and got a lot of attention, made a lot of connections in the industry with agents, reporters, some older players. Well, now they're older players than they weren't older players. Some players, and I got my name out there. So I did that for a couple more years. Then, like, real life happens. I'm in college. I got my first job out of college. I just didn't have the time to invest to continue growing that, because at that time there was no money involved either. It was just more of a passion, hobby project. It was fun, don't get me wrong, but there was no, like, I'm putting in all this time, and it's just fun. It's like, it's great, but I had like a life to start with, like college and a real job and buying a house and doing like real life stuff. So I take a break, just stop doing it essentially. Because back then too, there was really only 2 websites. It was Phin-Addict.com, which was just a message board. And it was our site back then, which I don't really want to say the name to, because I think somebody else actually owns it now all these years later. And I don't want to send traffic there. If
I got you.
Yeah. And our site, which really wasn't a message board, it was more like news and commentary. So like people knew these 2 sites are the sites to go to. So I stopped, and the other guy said, well, if you're going to stop, I'm done too. I'm like, okay. So we just went away. Fast forward about 10 years, roughly, maybe a little less, 9. I'm like, you know what? That'd be fun to do again. And things are different now. It's easier to make a website, easier to set up a website. I still have these contacts I talk to, but I'm talking to them in my personal life just for like my own personal information. I could share some, not all of it, but I can share some info that I can share on a wider scale. So I created the website I'm at now, which is DolphinsTalk.com, and just sort of rebuilt what I did at the other site, but just did it smarter, better, and it grew much faster because I was going into it with the knowledge I didn't have when I went into it the first time. I learned from the mistakes I made the first time, and I also knew I was also just more mature and more older to know, okay, this works, this won't work. I got to do it this way. And I know what I know. Like when we first started, I didn't know about podcasting. So I brought people on my team who knew about podcasting. And like the thing is, nobody can do anything alone. It takes a team, of course, in all aspects of life. So the things I wasn't strong at, like I'm good at content. I got contacts. I can write an article. I can get news. I can articulate an opinion, but I wasn't good at like the website design and the setting up a podcast and all that stuff. So I brought people in to fill out my weaknesses around me and build the platform up. And we built the platform up now it's going, I think it's year like 12. I think it is. Year 12. Yeah. No, year 13 maybe. Wow. It's been that long. Year 13. And it continues to grow. And a few years back, I had Jason Jenkins for the Miami Dolphins reached out, and he wanted me, because our platform grew so fast, it got like a lot of eyeballs on it. He reached out to me, wanted me to write in season on the official team website to provide content there. So that was a nice little thrill to work with Jason Jenkins and the actual organization itself.
Nice.
So it brought, that brings credibility to what we do and stuff like that. And I try to stay above the fray. I know, you go on Twitter, you go on some of this stuff. There's people fighting with cats and dogs. Like, what are you people fighting over? It's supposed to be fun. What are you fighting over? It's like, some of you have like no followers and you're fighting. It blows my mind. So I just try to make it fun. I try to be informative. I have an opinion. I'm not here to change anyone's mind. Nobody has to agree with me. I don't care, because I know, someone like you who said, I listened to you, I didn't like you, but then you know what? Because I know what I know.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I'm right all the time, but if you listen to me on a consistent basis long enough, you're going to know my opinion is true. It's what I'm not putting on an act. I'm not putting on a facade.
Yeah,
I'm not saying something to get attention or get clicks. I get clicks whether I'm over the top or talking nice and quiet. I don't need to make up this wild statement to get clicks. That's never been an issue. So I always say the people who know, and those are like the longtime listeners, longtime supporters, longtime readers of the website. And the ones who don't, well, if they're not smart enough to figure it out, I don't want you. I don't want you, someone who follows me, because you might not be intelligent enough to figure this out. It's like,
here's the one thing
football.
Too. You know my government name because of Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Shake Money. You have never gotten, even though I disagreed with you back in the day, you have never gotten a nasty email from me, because I know you get a lot of them. And the reason I never did that is because, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm for free speech. So look,
it's just football.
At the end of the day,
this is football.
Who am I to tell you how to run your business and run your platform? I will never do nothing.
And it's also, this is just football. It's a football opinion. And we all look, people say, you're not a fan. Shake, look at what's behind me. I'm not a fan of this team. I'm probably more of a fan of this team than most people. They just because I don't, spray sunshine and rainbows at everything ever said about the Dolphins doesn't mean I'm not a fan. Again, I'm just going to some things need to be questioned at times. And, it's okay to give the teams you root for tough love, as I said earlier in the episode. And there's nothing wrong with that. And as we always say on our podcast network, and we have like a few shows, there's no wrong way to be a fan of your team. If you're a fan of the Dolphins, welcome to the club. If you want to be someone who's sunshine and rainbows and maybe lives inside a fantasy world, inside of a little bit of a bubble where it's only good things all the time, great, you're a fan of the Dolphins. We love you. If you want to be someone who's a negative prick who poops on his team every day, you're still a fan of the team, great, welcome to the club. We love you. If you're someone like me who's more in the middle, a little bit of a realist, who's not going to, celebrate like a meaningless win week 2, go nuts, or someone who's not going to poop on the team if there's a bad game, just one game, like, welcome to the club. You're a Dolphins fan. I don't care what type of fan anyone is if you're a fan of the team. That's why, like, a lot of the infighting and stuff I just see is so childish, and it makes those sometimes who get involved look so small. And people will be like, "Wow, you were so lucky. You were picked that time to write for the Dolphins." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I conduct myself like an adult, and I don't act like a moron on social media, and I don't treat people like garbage, and like get into these petty little wars that you often see. If you like." Carry yourself like a normal person. Like if I ran into anyone at the supermarket or store, most people are friendly and nice and cordial. If you see some of this stuff you see online, people ranting and raving, nobody acts that way in real life. Nobody does. They act like a tough guy online, but they don't.
Well, here's the thing.
Act professional.
One thing about me is I do I'm on the Fins Tailgate. Shout out to my man Color Commentary. He gets the label Tua hater because he does the same thing you do. He praises. Listen, when Tua does good, Color goes, "Wow, Tua played a great game." When he plays bad, oh, he played bad. Now all of a sudden he's the freaking
You're a hater. That's
boogeyman.
You get labeled.
Boogeyman. But no, we do an open panel show on Fridays, and a lot of people that come onto the panels, they go, "Shake, man, I thank you for hosting these panels, because I feel when I give my opinions, you don't jump down my throat. You let me speak, and you, I give everybody free range, whether you're a Tua lover, a Tua supporter. Just speak your mind, bro. I make sure I open up to everybody who's brave enough to come up on here, right, on the platform and speak their opinion. I don't say you're stupid for it. I may disagree with you, and I'll tell you why I disagree, and we'll have a back and forth. But this drop your address or pull up. I'm like, I'm not with that. You can go somewhere else with that shit.
Yeah, like anything's really going to happen to. I mean, it's just so stupid. That's
So
stupid.
one of the funny things when I first started listening to your show, you posted it on YouTube, but at the same time it was a media file, so you didn't see your stuff.
Well, that's something. I never have ever thought of our platform, our podcast, as a YouTube platform. Mm-hmm. We are old school podcasting. We were like, I don't want to say one of the first ones because we weren't one of the first podcasters. We weren't. When it comes to Miami Dolphins podcast, we were one of the first podcasts in the old school Apple's podcast, Spotify, those outlets, the audio only outlets. Pretty much the only reason we're on YouTube is because StreamYard makes it so damn easy to just record both audio and video at the same time to where you got both. And it's like, why not? But I've never viewed myself as a quote unquote YouTuber. We're old school audio podcast, and we happen to, on most show, flip the switch so you also get the video. But we sell our advertising through our old school podcasting numbers. YouTube's there. It's great, and it's widely popular. And I know a lot of people are only YouTube shows, and that's great for them. I mean, kudos. Anyone who hosts a show or puts together a show on any platform, I will not, unless they attack me, I will not say anything negative about, because I know how much work, time, and effort goes into it. But yeah, we start off in the old school audio platform, and that's where a lot of our subscribers throughout the years have been built up. Why our numbers there dwarf anything we do on YouTube, because we're not a YouTube channel. I hardly promote the YouTube channel. We are old school audio, and that's where our numbers are pretty big. And that's why when like Ricky Williams has something to promote, his people will reach out to us. When Larry Zonka's got something to promote, his people reach out to us. When Mike Greenberg last year wrote a book, his people reached out to us because our numbers in that traditional audio podcasting form are so strong. And I think that world who, we got something to promote, we want to get out to as many people, they go off of that, not so much the YouTube. I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's just kind of how it works, though. So we've stayed loyal to our traditional audio platform. And yeah, we put a lot of shows now on YouTube just because we're recording it anyways. And why not? It's just so simple with the technology. So we've grown the YouTube some, but we're really not a YouTube channel. And I don't spend a ton of time on the YouTube world. Yeah. It's more just the audio side.
So no, when I was listening to, because on the Fin side did the same thing you guys used to do on the Fin side with Cat and Paw. I remember one time you had somebody you were doing with Tom Ernestine, and I'll never forget. Tom Ernestine said something, and they thought you said it, and you're like, okay, let's get one thing straight. I'm Mike Oliva. This is Tom Ernestine.
That happened. I mean, that's going to happen at times. People get stuff conflated, but people, I don't know. It is what it is.
Yeah. Let me ask you, one thing I always said, especially around free agency, the Dolphins fan base is like, taking kids, you have kids. I'm going to take you guys out to eat. And the first fast food, I want this. I want McDonald's. I want Burger King. I want this. I want this. I want this. And that's pretty much how it is. I want this running back. I want that running back. You know what I mean? So let me ask you this: what would you say if you can do your top 5 fan theories that kind of made you laugh? I'm like, nah, that's not going to happen. Like some of the craziest fan.
I don't know if I got 5, but I'll talk about this past year right now. Mm-hmm. Is if any fan out there thinks the Miami Dolphins will have more talent in 2024 than they did in 2023, they're lying to themselves. You don't lose a Christian Wilkins and a Robert Hunt and think your team is better. I mean, they haven't replaced them, and they probably will replace them with rookies in the draft, which is fine long term, but short term, I mean, they let go, or they chose not to re-sign Raekwon Davis and Christian Wilkins. They signed 5 career backups. Most people couldn't pick out of a police lineup. I mean, it's just true. Now, who knows who most Dolphins fans don't know who Neville Gallimore or, Jonathan Harris. But, when Miami signed anybody, you go on these social media apps and people are taking like victory laps, like this is the greatest signing ever. It's like these guys don't even play. Most of them don't play. How I view this past year, here's how I'm going to view it. They lost 2 linebackers. They signed 2 linebackers. It's about a wash. They lost Connor Williams. They signed Aaron Brewer. It's a 1-for-1 swap. But if they expect Aaron Brewer to play and start at center, it's a downgrade. He's not as good of a center as Connor Williams. It's not a huge downgrade. Doesn't mean Aaron Brewer's bad. Just means he's not as good as Connor Williams. That's a downgrade. They haven't replaced Hunt at all, so that's a downgrade. Tight end's an upgrade. Clearly, tight end's an upgrade. Not even close. They added a real tight end. Mm-hmm. Kudos there. Big upgrade. Safety, they added a 33-year-old Jordan Poyer, or soon to be 33, and they let go of 2 young players in their prime. Jordan Poyer, happy to have him here. Don't know if that's an upgrade when you lose 2 young safeties in their prime and replace them with one guy who's only a 1-year player. He's a Band-Aid. Kendall Fuller for Xavier Howard. I just wrote an article about this like 2 nights ago. From a financial standpoint, it's a home run because Xavier Howard not worth $18 million. You get that $18 million off the cap to use in other spots post June 1st. Clear, smart move there. But as players, Kendall Fuller, Xavier Howard, it's about a wash. People say Xavier Howard's always hurt. 2022, he played in 15 games. 2023, he played in 13. It's not like he's missing half the season here. He's missing a couple games each year. He's not as hurt as some fans like to perceive, but they tell themselves that to make themselves feel better that Xavier Howard's no longer here. Kendall Fuller's good. He did give up 9 touchdowns last year. Xavier Howard gave up 1. And I know some people are like, well, that number doesn't tell the whole story. No, it doesn't tell the whole story, but it tells part of the story. So again, I think that's about a wash. Kendall Fuller, Xavier Howard's a wash. The safety, close to a wash, a little bit of a downgrade. Center, a little bit of a downgrade. Linebacker, probably a wash. But you didn't replace Hunt and Christian Wilkins. They're going to try and do it in the draft with rookies, but they're rookies. What do you get year 1 out of rookies? Christian Wilkins is a rookie, struggled. He wasn't Christian Wilkins year 1. He was like year 3, Christian Wilkins started taking off. Robert Hunt, year 1, was failing at right tackle before they moved him to guard. It was year 2 that Robert Hunt became more of a stable player that you could count on week in, week out. So it's like the Dolphins this offseason, their roster has not improved. There's new faces. There's some old faces gone, new faces in. But the talent level overall hasn't improved. Now, it's not over yet. It's only March 29th as we talk. It's not over. But if you're asking me today on March 29th, with the information they have today, the roster's not improved. And they don't got the money to make a big signing, nor is there anyone out there left for them to sign to probably change that. Odell Beckham's a 3rd wide receiver would be great. Anyone who doesn't think so, I don't know what they're watching. That'd be a great signing because their wide receiver room last year let them down. The end of the year when Hill got hurt, and he only missed a game, but he came back, he was less than 100%. He wasn't the same player, and the offense changed. Waddle, I think he missed some games early in the year, then late in the year, he was not because he got hurt in the Cowboys game. After that, he was not 100%. Those other wide receivers, the Chase Claypools, Robbie Andersons, Braxton Berrios, Cedric Wilson, they couldn't step up. They couldn't make plays. They couldn't get open. So adding a legitimate 3rd wide receiver, not so much that Hill and Waddle need help. Just God forbid they get like a pulled hamstring and they got to either miss or be less than 100% for a couple weeks. This offense comes to a stop. This is a wide receiver-based offense, so if they can sign him, great. If not, they better use an early round pick in the draft on a wide receiver because this team is built around the offense, and it's an offensive league. And if you can't score points, you can't win. And the Miami Dolphins with Hill, Waddle, Raheem Mostert, the new tight end, this is an offense that they can put up points for the most part. They still struggle at times versus teams that are very good. But you better have insurance in case one of those 2 guys go down, that it won't struggle. Because late in the year last year, that offense struggled. It struggled versus the Ravens. It struggled versus the Bills. And it struggled versus the Chiefs. And people say injuries. The majority of the injuries were on defense, not the offense.
Preach, my brother. But all right, now let's talk about game days. Because on game days, do you have a special tradition food that you like to consume while you watch the games?
I used not so much anymore. I used to be the little superstitious type, like, oh, we won last week. I ate this at lunch. I'm gonna eat this at lunch, and then we're watching. Not so much anymore, though. But I used to be that way, where I used to like try to stay in a routine on game day. But as you get older, you start thinking, oh, that's kind of silly. It didn't really matter much. And I would have just ate that every week, and we never lose, but we still lose. So it's like, yeah, not so much anymore.
All right. So, but like for instance, like if the Dolphins won the Super Bowl, went to the Super Bowl, would it be a special thing that you would eat? I mean, not for a tradition, but
Yeah.
you know, like what's your favorite food to eat on game day is what I'm saying.
Funny enough, I'm sure most people say pizza, wings, or like a hero sandwich or something. I'm a turkey club guy. I love a turkey club. Give me a turkey club on a Sunday afternoon with some little side of fries. That will just hold me over, man, until like late that night. I'm a turkey club guy.
So, speaking of which, how many you've been to games? How would you compare Hard Rock to the other stadiums that you've been to?
The new and improved, upgraded Hard Rock's great, with the little roof, so the fans aren't sitting there baking in the heat, because it was brutal before without that roof. And the noise does stay in there more, and they move the fans closer to the field. So the new Hard Rock is very good. Now, when you compare overall stadiums to what they just built in Las Vegas or with SoFi, it's night and day. Those stadiums have every amenity. It's like going to a food court of like every top chef in the world, and they got shopping malls. Hard Rock's never going to have that. But from a game day experience, just watching the game, Hard Rock's up there is one of the best. It's like, it's not so overly big where it still feels somewhat intimate. I mean, what's the capacity? Like 67,000, something like. I don't even think it's up to 70 anymore. I think it's smaller.
Yeah, because of the 4-screen TVs.
Which was smart to do. They made it more intimate, which makes for a better football experience. So Hard Rock's up there, but it can't compare to the new one in Atlanta, the new one in Minnesota, the new one in Vegas, and SoFi and Los Angeles. Like, those are just over the top, unbelievable stadiums. Then you got some horrible ones, like MetLife is just brutal, bad. I've never been there, but everyone I talk to says it's like awful. The one with the Bills, I know they're tearing it down soon, and they're going to have a new fancy one. That one, it's like you walk back into 1965. It is so old. It's so bad. God bless Bills fans for actually accepting that for all these years. But, if any team needs a stadium, it was Buffalo. So God bless them, because what they are now stinks. I mean, it is so bad. And there's some of the older ones out there still. But Hard Rock's good for a football fan on a Sunday to watch a game. The sight lines are good, even if you sit up on top, where I've been up there. So if you're not like, you don't feel like you're miles away from the field.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Here, if the Dolphins, like we got the Las Vegas Raiders, Oakland Raiders, St. Louis Rams, LA Rams, San Diego Chargers, LA Chargers. Now, if the Miami Dolphins were to go to, say, Texas or New Jersey or wherever, New Mexico, whatever, and become the New Mexico Dolphins, would you still be a fan of the team?
Probably. Maybe the first year or so after, but then I probably would stop. It's not the same team. It's just not the same team. And thankfully, this won't happen, because when Stephen Ross redid Hard Rock Stadium with all of his own money, he didn't get no public money, but he got minuscule public money, very little compared to what most of these guys get. And part of that deal was he can't move the Dolphins. Not that he would, but he can't move them for like over 20 years. I think it is like 20 years. So when was the stadium redone? About 6-7 years ago. So for another like 13 years, that team, even if the new mayor in waiting, Ken Griffin, wants to move him, he can't. Not that he would either, because he is a Florida guy. But yeah. So yeah, maybe a year or so after, but I don't know if I could. That'd be tough. It's like fans of the Browns when they went to the Ravens. Like, it took, like, you can't just root for a whole new team with a whole new name like the next year. When the Oilers went to Houston and became the Texans. No, was it? No, when the Houston Oilers went to Tennessee, like, it's not the same. Like, maybe for a year, because you have that bond with those current players, but as those ones start to fade away and leave, it's not the team anymore. So I'd probably just wait for another team in Miami to come, that were the Miami Dolphins, hopefully, if they could keep the name and the history.
Fair enough. So last year, what would you give last year's Dolphins grade? If you had, last year's season, you could give them a grade. What would it be?
C plus.
C
And
plus.
when you're 9-3, and you have like a terrible. When you're 9-3 heading into December and you don't win the division or a playoff game, it's a pretty bad year. I mean, I know some fans are like, but we won. What did you win? It's a pretty bad year. You're 9-3. Got a 3-game lead on the Bills. You squandered it. And you didn't win a playoff game. Like if they squandered the regular season but won a playoff game, all right. Because that's what really counts. They didn't win anything. That is here's what fans of Dolphins don't understand. Like you mentioned the 93 season, how they won on the Leon Lett game and lost every game after. Mm-hmm. They also went through like 4 quarterbacks that year. Marino, Scott Mitchell, Doug Peterson. They signed Steve DeBerg, who was like 100 years old. So like it's a collapse, but there's like a lot of understanding around that collapse. The Dolphins the last 2 years, 8-3, 9-3, those are the 2 biggest collapses in the organization's history. And if you talk to some fans, they think the last 2 years were like some amazing seasons. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. Gave it a C plus. When I say B minus, I won't argue with you. But to collapse from where they were, and the injury excuse only goes so far. They did not lose to the Titans because of injuries. You have a 2-touchdown lead with 4 minutes to go. You're not losing because of injuries. You lost the game because you gave it away with poor coaching decisions and lack of execution from your quarterback in the final 5 minutes of the game. That game versus the Bills, you had a touchdown lead at home in the fourth quarter, and your offense did nothing. This guy's an offensive genius, offensive guru. You have a quarterback you're about to pay $50 million a year for, and they will. It's not even up for debate. It's happening, and I'm not even against it. I'm just saying some fans live in this world where it's not happening. It's happening. And the offense did nothing. Like, those are 2 of the most epic collapses in this franchise's long and storied history. It's just a fact. It is. How many other years where you have starts like that and you end the year as bad as we ended the year?
So, all right, we have 2 awards, right? Okay. On offense, you have the offensive MVP, and then you have the participation trophy, and same thing for defense. Who's your offensive MVP and who's your participation trophy?
Now, by participation trophy, does that mean the guy who comes in second, or is that like a backhanded insult?
He participated.
Okay. So offensive MVP is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is the single best player this organization's had since Dan Marino. And that it's not even close, honestly. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I wish he cleaned up some of the off-the-field stuff because I think that will be his downfall.
And not only to get the 2,000 yards. Leave that alone.
Yeah, I don't care about the 2,000-yard things. I don't want to hear about this year. But I'm talking about the off-the-field stuff with the law. He's got to clean some of that stuff, and not even with the law, because some of it hasn't drawn legal action. Just the constant drama off the field, but on the field, he is so far and away better than most wide receivers in this league. It's not even funny. He brings an element that is just scary good. So he's the MVP. The participation trophy on offense. That's a good. Teron Armstead. Again, I hate to knock players with injuries. I could not. NFL players put their bodies through hell. Wait a minute. I don't know if I want to use Armstead. That's not. I mean, should I use Armstead? I don't want to use Armstead because it is injuries. I don't want to knock a guy with injuries. Jeff Wilson. Yeah, but he was inactive for. I don't know. On offense, this is tough. This is really tough. Because some people would say Liam Eichenberg. I actually thought Liam Eichenberg had a pretty good year last year. And nobody was a bigger critic of Liam Eichenberg than me for what he was asked to do. He's not a center. They forced him in there. He learned as quick as anyone could, held his own. Like Lester Cotton. I'm going to give Lester Cotton a participation award. He started more than half the year. Just, first off, worst name for any offensive lineman, Cotton. Soft. No, not good name. But overall, I'm going to say Lester Cotton gets the participation one. Because Armstead, he makes them so much money, but he is injured. And I know the injuries are legit. And I know he works like insane to come back. So I don't want to throw that label on him. So I'm going to give it to Lester Cotton. Defense, well, last year was Chubb. And it's criminal. It is criminal why he was on that field late in the game and why he got hurt. And I was going to miss, a significant part of 2024. He was the MVP last year. It wasn't even close. Participation award. Raekwon Davis.
Raekwon
Nice
Davis.
guy, nice player. Just not as impactful as you would have hoped for a second-round pick.
And now he's the Colts problem now.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he does turn it around and has a very good NFL career moving forward. But where Miami got him at the end of the round, it's still second-round pick. Just you kind of expected a little bit more, and not even so much with the stats, because I know that is a position where where you're taking on multiple offensive linemen to let linebackers make plays and let some other people make plays. But he just, I don't even know if he did that well from watching stuff I saw. He was there. He was there, and he was healthy most of the time. So I got to give him credit for that. But you just kind of hope with a second-round pick, you hope to keep him beyond his rookie contract. And there was, like, when he left, I don't know if anyone even cared. Like, all right, Raekwon's gone. Who cares?
But real quick before we continue, I want to give a big shout out to your latest acquisition. I could say honestly, he's a friend of mine, Stephen D.
Yeah, good guy.
He was formerly from Miami, Dolphins, sports music, whatever. And I could tell you what, the quality, video quality, visual quality, I think, and the program that he's doing, I think I think you guys are help elevate each other into the get to the next
absolutely
level.
That's what it's about. Like, as I've grown the site, again, it can't be just me. I own it. I do my part. I do a lot of the work, but it can't be just my voice, because people would get sick and tired of it after a while. It can't only be my thoughts and ideas. It's other talented people to collaborate with me and grow the platform it's not even me, it's we grow it together. And he's someone who brings a lot of value to our website and our brand. So happy to have him on our team.
And that's why when I joined, like, for instance, I don't have a Shake Money's channel. I'm with Larry K, and I'm with the Fins Tailgate for that same reason. Like I said, I wanted to be a part of a team. The Fins Tailgate, we're like-minded, but we have our own style. We have our own flair. We have our own spin. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, we're like Voltron. We come together.
Voltron, there's a throwback. I love that. Yeah, that was a great show as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I also love same old Dolphins with the brain.
Josh and Aaron. Yeah. That's a very popular show because it's a unique perspective. Again, we're all fans of the team. Everyone wants to see the team win, but you can look at like I said, we like to look through a lens, not all of us, but I think they think very much along the lines of me as, yes, we're fans, but when something's apparently bad or apparently not working, we're not afraid to call it out and say, time out. Let's talk about this more in depth, because this is clearly headed the wrong way if it's like a week, or if you're in the middle of like a losing streak or something, or if we sign a player and everyone, like the Bradley Chubb trade, when it happened at the time, I think it was Aaron on that show, was like, I don't know if this is a great trade. And he gave a million valid reasons. And that first year, he looked like he was right, because all those reasons were right. But this past year, obviously, Chubb had a big year up until the injury. But it's like, it's okay to question things. It's okay to just not accept things. It's okay not to fall into the social media mob. That's what it is. It's a social media mob. It's a mob and groupthink where, I got 100 people telling me this is true, so it must be true. No, those 100 people could have an IQ of 3 combined, and they might be blithering idiots. And just because you found 99 other people to agree with your idiot stance doesn't make it true. That doesn't make it true. It's okay to be an independent thinker. It's okay to be an independent voice. And, like I said, more times than not, the platform, the shows are praising the Dolphins. Like when you're 9-3 and you're 8-3, there's not too much to criticize. But when the tide starts to turn, and you can see, here we go again, and the losing starts, that's when I think, as a broadcast journalist, as a content creator, whatever the term you want to use, you have a choice to make. You can, let the winning. You can be like, I'm not. It's going to be fine, and then you go on show. It's going to be fine. Well, it might not be fine, and here's why. And sometimes that side isn't articulated enough, or it's articulated by the wrong people who just act like clowns. And we just are very level-headed on our show. We have fun. We have a lot of fun. Each week when myself and Ian Berger predict games, I do a little roast of the city or team we're playing.
Yes.
So this week we're playing Kansas City. Yeah.
My favorite one is the crime. What
crime?
city did it happen where I think one was they had sex in a Ferris wheel? Was it Las Vegas or was it Florida?
Yes. Okay. Well, you're talking about the Florida Man game. Okay, so we do two things in season on the channel. And I don't know if we're going to do the Florida Man game next year, because once you do it once, I don't know if that's something that has. So each week, nowadays, everyone knows about the Florida Man. Like these wild stories in Florida. Someone went to Wendy's and threw like an alligator through the drive-thru. Only in Florida can that happen. Someone does something. Someone ran naked through. Someone runs naked through a Walmart and says screaming something wild. Like these are things that only happen in Florida, and those stories have been labeled Florida Man stories. So I'm like, look, yes, Florida might have more than most, and yes, our favorite team is in Florida. But there's crazy stories like this happening all across the country. So when we play the Bills, it's Florida Man versus New York guy. When we play the Chiefs, it's Florida Man versus Kansas City or Missouri guy. When we play so we did that each week in a season where I read two stories to Ian. I try to take out anything that might give away, because it's like if a South Florida well, no, I can't say that because he didn't know it's a Florida story. So I try to clean it up. And I read them both, and the people in the chat can guess. Then Ian guesses, and we see how many he gets right, how many he gets wrong. There's that. And then we do the predictions for the game, where we give this serious analysis of what we think is going to happen in this Sunday's game. But before I give my score prediction, which again, it's a score prediction, who cares? I'll be like, I roast if we're playing the Bills. Buffalo, New York, where the men are men and the sheep are scared. Buffalo, Canada's landfill. And I just roast with hacky jokes.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun though.
The opponent, it's just have some fun. Give like 2 minutes of jokes. Then I give my very serious prediction. And that, you got to have fun doing this stuff and not be so serious. Yeah. I mean, if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it, honestly, at this point in my life.
Come on, I'm smoking a cigar and drinking a Mai Tai.
Exactly. I mean, this is supposed to be fun. I mean, and it's funny too. Last year, I went to a game in South Florida that was on the Fan Fest weekend. And I do not know, like fan club weekend, Fan Fest, whatever. You got fan clubs from Mexico, fan clubs from Germany, fan clubs from the UK, fan clubs from Omaha, Nebraska. These Miami Dolphins fan clubs, they all go down there for this one weekend. And the Saturday before the game, they all go to a bar. And everyone just sort of mingles with each other, talks. And it was so cool walking in there and having, I'm just sitting at my table with Tom Ernest. Seth Levitt was there from the Fish Tank. We were just sitting there talking, shooting the breeze, and people would come up and be like, "Oh my God, Mike, I listened to you for like 5 years. It's so nice to meet you in person. Can I have a picture?" Like, oh no, and like 5 minutes later, someone else comes up. It's like just walking through there and putting, some people on social media I have interacted with, but a lot of them be like, "I've never reached out to you, but I've listened." And it's like meeting people face to face and getting that interaction of, yes, I do this show in this room. I got the door closed. I'm on the internet. You don't realize how many people are actually listening, though. You don't realize how many people are actually watching on YouTube. You don't realize how many people listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And they tell us, I listened to you here, and I've been listening since. And just meeting a bunch of those people that afternoon, it was like really eye-opening. And it was really nice because, you go on social media and everyone's yelling and screaming and stuff. But face to face, most people are nice and they're normal people, and they're going to come up to you, shake your hand, and say, "Oh, thanks. I've been a long time listener," or whatever. So that was really cool last year.
I definitely got to meet up with you and take your picture because
absolutely.
I had this happen. I met
Stephen D. Yeah,
and shout out to Dolphin.
I'll let you know when I'm going down this year. I don't know which games yet because I got to see the schedule, but I'll let you know.
Yeah, I live 2 hours away. Even if I have to go to the tailgate, I'll just go to the tailgate.
That's it. Nothing wrong with that.
Shout out to Dolph Freaky because I live in the Southwest Florida area where she has. So she has
She's got a
Dolphins
good fan
watch
club.
party.
Yep.
And she had a Buffalo Bills watch party, the first watch party, whatever.
Yep.
And it stuck. But the only bright light of that was I got to meet Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas. Yeah, that's right, because he popped into that one. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, he signed my hat. That's back
Nice.
there, sitting up there, and that's
Nice.
gonna stay there. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fun too. I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of former players or even media personalities that you looked up to as a kid and stuff like that. And it's I don't care what anyone says, it's a thrill. And 9 times out of 10 they're good people. Every now and then you will run into a jerk, and I'm not going to share their names here today.
Yeah, but
every now and then you do. Yeah.
Give me a top 5 in no particular order. This is in a particular order of your favorite former Dolphins interviews.
Yeah, number one's Larry Zonka. Larry Zonka, I've had the opportunity to interview him twice. First time, gave me a half hour. I probably could have took an hour, but I didn't want to tie him up that long. He wrote a book, and we talked about everything from his time in playing high school in Ohio to his time at Syracuse University, and then going and being picked by the Dolphins and his hatred of Don Shula the first few years he was there. It's an amazing interview. Then I had him on just before the Super Bowl when he was going to walk the trophy up to the stage, and we spoke again. Another great interview. He's number 1. Number 2 is Ricky Williams. It's just he is so thoughtful in his answers, and he takes time. He's authentic. He's giving you real answers. He's someone who's not blowing. Some interviews you get out with people, they got something to promote. They just want to talk about the promotion and kind of rush off. Ricky, I've had him on again twice as well, and most recently, not too long ago.
I watched both of them.
He was awesome. So those are 1 and 2. Number 3, I had Sam Madison on. This is a little while back. Sam Madison was great. This was before he was the coach of the Dolphins too. This was before he was the NFL coach, period. He was just working like as a
the Audible. He was doing the Audible with Kim Bokamper.
Yeah, he was doing that stuff. Yeah. And he came on. He was great. He had a lot of great stories. OJ McDuffie's great. Because OJ McDuffie,
I got to talk to him.
He's a former player who thinks like a fan. Yeah. That's the best way to describe OJ. He wants to win. He wants to win all the time. And he does not, he works for the team in some way, so he can't be too over the top. But OJ's great. Love OJ. I could talk to OJ every day on our show. Really, he's that good. I'm trying to think of a 5th. Who's a good 5th? God, I'm drawing a blank. Who's a good 5th? Give me 1 second. I have to say this now. I have to give you a good 5th because I got a list of everyone we've had on. I want to see who comes to mind. Once I see the names, who is good? Not a former player. I'm going to give you a good one.
Okay.
Not a former player. Jeff Darlington. Oh, you know what I'm going to give you? No, not Jeff Darlington. And people are going to hate me for saying this, but I don't care. Mike Tannenbaum.
Oh, wow.
I had on Mike the 2020 in COVID. Okay. Week of the draft. This is the week before we're about to take Tua on that Thursday night. COVID year. Everyone's home. No one's doing anything. I get Mike Tannenbaum on the Wednesday before the draft.
Nice.
And I got him for like 10 or 15 minutes and flat out asked him. He goes, I don't have a ton of time. I go, Mike, I got about 5 questions for you. Don't worry. Question 1. And we started the interview. I go, first question, Tua or Herbert, what should Miami do? Lays out an answer. Whether you agree with the answer or not, because he said Herbert. Whether you agree with the answer or not, I don't care. He said the answer. He answered the question. And this was a year after he's been fired by Stephen Ross. So the fact he came on the show was great because he knew about the show and he knew me, but he was hesitant, but I finally talked him into it. He answered the question, gave an honest answer. Then I asked him 3 or 4 other questions. I go, I didn't delve into his past. Why'd you do this way? I asked about the future, what they're going to do this week. He gave an awesome interview. And again, I know fans, well, screw my turn about it's not about that. It's about the fact the guy came on, you asked him a straightforward question. He didn't tap dance around it. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He gave an honest answer that he believed. Whether you agree with the answer or not, it's totally different. He was a great interview.
Mm-hmm. What's funny is when people when people say, "Oh, Tannenbaum doesn't know anything." Okay, What's your resume?
He was never the GM, too.
I'm saying, I tell him, what's your resume like?
Yeah. Like,
You know
here's the deal with Mike. I'm not saying Mike did a banner job with the Dolphins. Clearly, he didn't. They didn't win.
Yeah,
but he built 2 Jets team as the GM and got him to the AFC Championship game twice. And then in Miami, he was never the GM. Now, everyone thinks, even though everyone works it up in the head, well, he's not the GM, but he's forcing Chris Grier to do this. But then when Chris Grier drafts Laremy Tunsil and drafts Xavier Howard, Mike Tannenbaum gets no credit for that. Mike Tannenbaum only gets credit for the bad picks. And no, he gets blamed for the bad picks, no credit for the good ones. And it's like, you can't have both ways.
Well,
like, you
can I give you a prime example?
Yeah.
2020, according to some Dolphin fans, Chris Grier drafted Austin Jackson and he drafted Tua, but Brian Flores drafted Noah Igbenogany.
Yeah, exactly. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. Yeah. It's not how it works.
I don't think they play rock. They think they play rock, paper, scissors. Okay, shoot. Okay, I got this one.
It's not how it works. Yeah, it's not. But right now, Chris Grier is final say. He has final say over everything. Because I know last year, here I'll share a tidbit, which I think I've shared on my show. Mike McDaniel wanted Achane in round 2. He just did. He wanted Achane in round 2. Chris Grier said, "I like Achane. We ain't taking him around 2." Took Cam Smith. Achane still happens to be on the board in round 3. I'll give you Achane. Round 3, that's makes more sense. But Chris Grier is final say now, and there's been other things like that that I know about. I don't want to share them all, but that one I can now because both players are on the team.
Omar Kelly said this. Omar Kelly said this. Ross wanted Lamar Jackson. Adam Gase wanted Josh Allen or whatever, but he says nope. The pick is Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Which wasn't an awful pick. It's just you don't trade the guy just because he asked. Perfect. Dan Marino in the late 80s went into Don Shula's office and said, "Trade me." Don Shula laughed and said, "See you at practice at 3." Just because the guy wants something doesn't mean you have to do it. You can say, people don't even know about that. But in the late 80s, Miami, after the 87 season, which was a strike season, 88 and 89, they really weren't very good. Dan Marino got kind of tired losing. He has to be traded. Don Shula sat in his chair and goes, that's cute. I'll see you at practice. He ain't trading him. And just because Minkah Fitzpatrick wasn't happy, I would have said, sorry, Minkah. See you at practice. Just because somebody's unhappy doesn't mean you have to trade them. We live in this new society where it's like, but the player's not happy. His feelings are hurt. Yeah, and he's making $10 million a year. I don't care. Like the franchise don't have to buckle every time a player barks, but nowadays they seem to do, and I'm not even sure why.
So behind you have a lot of memorabilia. What's the one thing, if you had to rush out your house and you could only take one thing with you, what's the one thing you're taking?
All right, so above my sort of head.
Yeah.
That one.
The jersey?
Nope, the helmet. Dan Marino, because he came to Syracuse for a signing, and I got that one with my dad. He was with me for that signing, and I have a picture of me, my dad, and Marino together for that helmet being signed. So that's the one, because that's a special one, just because it was in person. Not all these were in person. Some of them are shows. A lot of them are in person. Most of them were in person. Some of them were gifts, and others were just like paid for and just like ordered off a website or off of Phin-Addicts and stuff like that. But that one with Dan, just because of that picture, and it was signed with him in front of me and my dad. That one means the most.
Well, how much time do I have you for?
You probably have me for like another 5 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So then that'll lead me to my last question, and then we could wrap this up. I could talk to you for a couple of minutes backstage.
Yeah.
Just pick your brain then. All right. So with the final question, give me your Dolphins Mount Rushmore.
Okay. Well, Shula and Marino.
And it doesn't have to be a player. It could be owner, whatever.
Yeah, so it's going to be Shula, Marino, Zonka, and Joe Robbie. It's got to be the guy who founded the team. He's got to be on the Mount Rushmore. And he's the one who was behind, and he was the owner when the team had the most success ever. He's the only owner who led the team to. Yeah.
Here's a fun fact that I found out when I was doing some digging on the NFL wanted the new expansion team in Atlanta. He's the one who fought for the team to be in Miami.
Yeah, and here's another fun fact. The team in Miami was supposed to be owned by Ralph Wilson, who ended up owning the Bills. So Ralph Wilson was supposed to own the original team in Miami. But back then it was a totally different world. This was still a baby. The NFL, AFL, everything was in its infancy, and things changed. So Ralph Wilson somehow ended up with the Bills. I think they were already established, the Bills, or maybe they were just a couple years old. He ended up with the Bills somehow. And shortly after, Joe Robbie got some partners, and he founded the team in Miami. But yeah, there was a lot of shuffling back then of them trying to sort everything out. It was
just like
a different world.
Ross said he wanted the Jets. Go figure.
Well, I mean, Ross is unique because he grew up in Florida, went to college at Michigan, made his money in New York. So he's got like 3 homes, like 3 places he has strong ties to, and super strong ties to South Florida, super strong ties to Michigan, where he bankrolls the entire sports program. And New York City is just where he made his money. I don't know with the sports teams there. I know he's close with Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets. They're close. But a lot of these super rich guys are close because they run in the same circles that normal people would never even run in. It's so strange. But the next owner of the Dolphins, I know, was born in northern Florida in the 60s. And because there was no Tampa Bay back then, and Lord knows there's no Jacksonville. I believe so. He's been a diehard fan of the Dolphins forever, and he was born in northern Florida. And he's going to take over this team, Ken Griffin, whenever the time comes. And he's got more money than all these guys combined. He is the hedge fund of hedge fund guys. And Ken Griffin, if you're listening, I'll work for you. He's a very rich man. But so I don't think he's going to move the team or do anything crazy like that. But yeah, Ken Griffin, who will take over this team in time, because he has the right of first refusal now, and he's got so much money, he's just going to buy it. Not even up for debate. But yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, any final thoughts before we out of here, man? And once again, I am humbled and honored for you to give me a little bit of time you've given me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I do appreciate you saying at the start when you're saying wasn't a fan at first, but yeah, you kind of grew on me. I kind of like that. That was nice. But no, just anyone, again, if you want honest, thoughtful opinions on the Dolphins, go to our website at dolphinstalk.com. We have podcasts, we have original commentary, we got news, you name it, we got it. I don't censor opinions. Whether, I know people, like I said, people fall in those boxes, positive, negative. I don't care. If you're a fan of the team, you're a fan of the team. If the people who write for us, the people who do shows, it's their opinion. And, I always think it's good to hear all opinions. People say, Stephen A. Smith, I don't care what he's got to say. Why? Because his football opinion might not throw flowers at the Dolphins. Doesn't mean it's wrong. And sometimes I like to hear someone else's opinion who isn't like mine, because maybe I will learn something, or maybe I'll look at something from a new way. So we don't censor opinions. And our shows have very nice hosts who are all genuine. Not saying you got to agree with everything, but it's more about having a conversation about our favorite team and just building a community that, is built on friendliness and not like insulting each other all the time. Although if someone does come at me, I will insult them. I'm not saying I'm above it, but I just try to stay above the fray and not get involved in that petty BS you often see online.
So anyway, before we close out, I just want to say one thing to help the statement that you just said. I've said this before on the show, that when you challenge your belief, 2 things will happen. You either fortified what you believe in because you put it to the test, or you might come out with a different opinion. So either way,
and that's good.
It's good to hear different opinions. So with that being
range
said,
of opinions is always good. Yeah, it's always good.
So with anybody saying, hey man, thanks again everybody for watching. Make sure you hit the like button. If you have, please comment if you watch the replay. Comments are welcome. And yeah, man, hit me up if you want to be a guest in the blender. The only thing I ask is you have to be a Dolphin fan. That's pretty much it. That's the only requirement. So fins up, everybody.
I know you heard me on the radio flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.